JotPsych is the first AI-powered EHR built for therapists. It automatically writes your notes and handles scheduling forms and more. Try it free and get 50% off your first 2 months with code JOE at jotpsych.com. This is the Practice of the Practice podcast with Joe Sanok, session number 1294. Hey, everybody. I've got this idea of starting a counseling practice from scratch and seeing if maybe within 5 years I can sell it. And it's been kind of like mulling around in my head, and I think I'm going to try it. I'm going to try to so here's some of the limits that I'm thinking. Spend 2 hours a week building this thing and just take you step by step through what these 2 hours were, talking through it, maybe sharing with you some of the interviews or conversations that I have with people to really show that the things that we talk about here really work. And there may be things that we're teaching that, I don't have those beginner eyes anymore. So I started mental wellness counseling back in 2006, sold that in 2019 to Nicole Ball, who is now one of our consultants. She's taken it to multi-seven figures. I had it as a private pay practice. She has switched it to an insurance practice. So as I dive into this, I want to have new eyes to think about like how we build practices now. 2006 was a long time ago when I started mental wellness counseling. 2019, pre-pandemic, she bought that July of 2019. And so, less than a year before the pandemic. So a lot has shifted. The one thing I've already done is I have bought Great Lakes online counseling. And so what I'm thinking is that I don't want to jump back into the counseling world. I love doing consulting. I love doing podcasting. I love doing the things that we do with Practice of the Practice all the time. And so I'm wanting to see, can I be an owner? Can I be a partial operator, but not the clinical side? We often talk about how really there's three roles that a person has in a private practice. That you're the owner, and so you're taking on the risk and all the energy of starting, growing, and scaling a private practice. You are the operator. You are running the thing. You're finding out, how to take hats off, how to outsource things, and then you're often the clinician within it, and that you get to decide which of those roles you want. And so for me, right now, I'm thinking, I don't think I want to do the clinical side. I think I want to have other people do that, see if I can start a business, and then maybe exit that business within 5 years or so. Maybe it'll be sooner than 5 years. So then what I'm thinking about are a few different things here. So the first thing is, where to file the LLC. Because it's online, I'm going to be checking with my accountant and attorney and see if we can do that in Wyoming. Wyoming's where we are with Practice of the Practice. We already did that with our LLC there because of the tax infrastructure and how that works. And we want to make sure we do it right, that if we're serving multiple states, around the U.S., starting with the Great Lakes region, can we be in Wyoming? Next, I'm going to start looking at building the website. I'm going to talk with Session Sites about doing that. They've been a great partner. And with all these partners, I'm going to try to negotiate that we're giving them promotion in exchange for what they're giving us in regards to building. And so I want to be completely transparent with this, that I'm going to say this is how much it would cost. But, say Session Sites is $2,000 for a website, to say to them, hey, will you waive that fee for the promotion of us doing this as part of just an experiment that's live. And so like sessionsites.com/Joe, we're already affiliates with them. That to me makes sense to have them build our website. I'm going to talk to Dan King. He was one of our speakers at the Group Practice Conference in 2025. He's going to probably be back in 2026. He's a guy who helps different investors buy practices. And so to think with that lens, so I'm guessing I'm going to be reaching out to him to see if he might want to do an interview where we just talk through what they look for when they buy practices, so that I can build something that has the potential to be bought in a couple years, and to say, well, like, what are elements that give it extreme value? Like, for example, having a psychiatrist involved, does that give it extreme value, more of a multiplier versus just having counselors? Is private pay or insurance better? Is working with a biller that you have that entire thing better? Like, just talking through all the different things. So I want to talk with Dan King about that. I'm going to also talk with Jeremy Zug. He has Practice Solutions, to talk with him about just like the billing side, that if I do decide to do insurance, which I'm sort of leaning towards looking at, well, what are the highest payers? And today, one of the things I'm working on is I'm going to work with some AI to try to determine that. And we'll do that together here on this episode. I also have that I want to talk to Grant from Headway. So Grant is the lead over there with group practices. One of my best friends uses Headway. They've been a great sponsor. That might just be an easier entry point to get onto insurances quickly, rather than have to go through credentialing and to kind of take all those steps that maybe Jeremy will help me discover. So I'm going to talk with Grant and kind of compare that to what Jeremy says, to compare that to what Dan says. To just think through how do I give it the most value, but also the most ease for me. If I'm only giving myself 2 hours a week to work on this thing, maybe it is that, one person will say that one wouldn't be preferable and that something else might be. But it may be the ease side that, if I want to build more passive income, that I'm really not doing much work, it may make sense to work with Headway in that situation too. So talk with them. I definitely want to talk to Brandon, who's one of our consultants. He's one of our consultants for early stage group practices. And I want to talk with Brandon more about just his experience and really kind of saying, hey, if I'm going to do this, like, what should I know? Because, I do consulting all the time with people, but also there might be things that I've missed since my time of owning a practice. I also got to, at some point look at liability insurance as a group compared to as individuals and look at what contracts look like. So probably going to talk to my attorney about some of that, just to make sure that we have, and I'll probably use some AI to get at least first round kind of things, and then really determine what I need to actually talk to my attorney about. And then, I want to think through the insurance versus private pay. I know that as I work with my consulting clients, it seems like in this current economic environment, private pay is pretty tough. But then, with services like Thrizer, that's going to be actually a lot easier to have people do that billing for out-of-network benefits. So I want to weigh out some of those costs and analyze that. Also, I'm going to use AI today. That's going to be where I spend some of my time looking at different insurances in each state. And then I am going to work on writing a letter to all these people, saying an email, just saying, here's the project that I'm working on. Some of them I've already talked to a little bit about this idea. And would they waive their fees for the first 2 years to help me get started? And then I'll disclose what those fees were. But us having an audience, here that, gives them, some things out of it too. And then from an accounting standpoint, probably going to talk to Herd. Herd has been a great sponsor in the past. They seem to make things pretty easy when it comes to accounting and software. At some point, not yet, I'm going to look at who's going to answer the phones. And so we've got different services that help with that as well that we're going to want to talk to as well. So let me put that on the checklist of phones. Because really, I don't want to be answering phones. I don't want to be scheduling people. I don't want to be involved on getting people in. I want this to be really, really automated. And so we'll see what we discover. I want to thank Headway for sponsoring this episode. If you run a group practice, you know that accepting insurance can be overwhelming. Between credentialing, billing, and payroll, the admin side can easily take over your week. Headway was built to help you handle this, and they're the only platform designed specifically for in-network group practices. Whether you're growing your team or running an established practice, Headway makes the business side easier with faster credentialing, higher per-session rates, and bi-weekly payments your team can count on. They work with therapy, psychiatric, and hybrid group practices. There are no subscription fees, just the support you need to run your practice with ease. Run your best group practice with Headway, trusted by thousands of group practice leaders to simplify insurance admin and reach more people through in-network care. Curious how Headway can work for you? Head to join.headway.co/Joe. That's join.headway.co/Joe to learn more. I'm going to open up ChatGPT. We've done a lot of training with it. I'm going to say act like a insurance expert who focuses on mental health in the Great Lakes states. I'm going to say, what assumptions do you have? So I always say, here's how I want you to think, and then what assumptions do you have? So I'm going to say, act like an insurance expert who focuses on mental health in the Great Lakes states. What assumptions do you have? So here's what it says. Perfect. Act like an insurance expert specializing in mental health in the Great Lakes states: Michigan, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Minnesota. Here are the core assumptions I would start with. I thought that Pennsylvania touched the Great Lakes states. I'm going to go to maps. Sorry, all you PA people, if I, let's just look here. Got to really zoom out from here. There's the Great Lakes. Yeah, Pennsylvania totally touches it. Lake Erie, and New York also. Yeah, New York up there on Lake Ontario. So we got to correct ChatGPT. I'm going to put add PA and NY. I guess they don't think you're a Great Lakes state. So that brings us to 8 states. Would be interesting to see if I could add Canada in there, but that's probably going to be a whole different venture. All right, so we have all 8 states must comply with the Federal Mental Health Parity and Addiction Equity Act, but Pennsylvania and New York have the strongest state-level enforcement. New York's Timothy's Law is one of the nation's strictest parity laws, mandating equal coverage for most mental health conditions. PA's Department of Insurance frequently audits insurers for parity compliance. Telehealth. New York and Michigan have robust telehealth parity laws requiring equal reimbursement for in-person and telehealth. Wisconsin, Ohio, and Indiana still allow some flexibility for insurers to pay less for telehealth. Okay, so that's interesting to know that maybe I'm going to focus on, I live in Michigan, so maybe we focus on Michigan and New York. And across all 8 states, telehealth remains essential for rural access. Persistent shortage of in-network clinicians, especially in Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Pennsylvania, leads to more out-of-network claims and hybrid models. Okay, so reimbursement trends. So it's showing that Michigan, for a 90837 60-minute session, Blue Cross Michigan dominates in the 140 to 175 range. Great. This is going through every single state with kind of the highest reimbursements. Other trends: credentialing, 3 to 5 months average, with Optum and Blue Cross still being slowest. EAPs are in decline, and there's documentation, compliance audits, things like that. So I'm going to now ask it, if you were to take all the data and say which states I should focus on to make the most money and work only 2 hours a week, I'm going to say I'll be hiring the clinicians. So that's only admin. Where should I focus? Okay, so I said, if you were to take all the data and say which states I should focus on to make the most money and only work 2 hours a week, I'll be hiring clinicians, so that's only admin. Where should I focus? All right, so it's thinking about all of this. All right, key variables. All right, so to make a data-driven guess about which states to target so you can maximize revenue while doing minimal hands-on work, mostly admin oversight, you'll need to weigh several variables. Below is how I'd reason through it, and then my picks. These are still assumptions. The real numbers may vary in your particular niche, payer mix, clinician type, etc. All right, so it's going to look at reimbursement levels, negotiated rates, provider supply, credentialing difficulty, enforcement of parity, population and insurance market, cost of doing business, and Medicaid public involvement. And so it says adding Pennsylvania and New York changes the mix because they're two relatively large and populous markets that can swing the balance. All right, so which states to focus on? Top picks. So it says the best bang for my buck and some of the logic would be New York, the pros, large insured population, many large payers, strong parity laws, and recent push to match Medicaid level reimbursements, many underserved areas, upstate and other suburbs, better regulatory and enforcement visibility, risks, credentialing, and payer bureaucracy in New York City across counties can be high. Some insurers will resist compliance or delay implementation of higher rates. Michigan and Ohio, pros, it's less saturated than coastal or large eastern states. You'll likely have more leverage with insurance. Risks, lower absolute reimbursement ceilings. Pennsylvania, it's a, quote, sleeper pick. Not as glamorous as New York, but big enough to matter and possibly less contested. Could serve as a second state target once you establish operations in New York. So it sounds like maybe it's saying, Michigan's where I live, and then maybe New York, and then maybe Pennsylvania. And then to make it realistic of 2 hours a week, clinicians must be largely autonomous with minimal oversight. Most of the work is automated with billing, credentialing, renewals, payer contracts. We must outsource and systematize audits, appeals, compliance. Any state you pick ideally has stability. States where payers frequently change rules, renegotiate, or regulatory shifts are common will be worse for your model. New York is promising in that regard because of active regulation. Payer practices may be more stable or at least more observable. Final recommendation, if I had to pick a single state, I'd choose New York. It gives the highest ceiling, larger patient base, and more leverage with insurers. Then to diversify risk and handle admin load, I'd add a Great Lakes state like Michigan or Ohio as a satellite. If you like, I can run projected revenue models for New York versus Michigan versus PA. Yeah, let's do that. All right, so I'm thinking through this. Like New York and Pennsylvania really weren't like top of mind for me, but I like that idea of really doing some analysis around this. So it's thinking longer for a better answer. So while it's bringing that together, I think one thing this brings up for me is who do you already know that can help you? My very first, quote, accountant was a friend of mine that literally I took him out to Panera a couple times for lunch, and he just gave me advice on different things. And so sometimes you have friends that are good at branding. Sometimes you have friends that are good at things. And when you're just getting started, you want to keep those costs low unless, maybe you have a partner that's funding this for you. Maybe that's a little bit easier for you, that you can take more risks. Now, being that this is a side project for me that I'm just kind of building publicly, I want to just make sure I follow my own rules. And if I feel like I can't, then to tell you why I worked more than 2 hours in a week. This thing's really thinking hard. Wonder if me streaming while I'm doing this might be a problem. I'm going to say, do it faster, please. All right, let's see if that'll just make it mad. I mean, I had this idea because, I'm seeing all these practices that we help that, they started at 50,000 and then 100,000. Within just a couple of years, they're doing multiple seven figures. And so, thinking about, could I build this and follow my own rules and analyze some things as part of it. It looks like the ChatGPT is probably going too slow because I'm streaming this also while I'm talking. Oh, here we go. All right, I knew I was going to do it. So, all right, data-driven comparison of expected first-year revenue for a 5-clinician mental health group practice. You working 2 hours a week, admin. So New York, it says 592,875, with owner take-home being 237. Ohio, about the same. Michigan, they're all around 560 to 590, with over 200,000 in take-home. So New York gives the highest margin, 237,000 net year one, thanks to strong parity enforcement and higher reimbursement. Ohio comes close, and then Michigan and Pennsylvania are slightly behind. So to me, thinking about speed gets me thinking, if I do it myself to get each clinician to be on the panels, looking at the highest paying panels, versus working with a Headway. That's where I think talking to Jeremy Zug and Grant from Headway is going to be really helpful, and then also talking to Dan about what they look for when they're buying a practice. So I mean that's hopeful, to just 5 clinician mental health group practice. So theoretically, that being $500,000 or so in revenue, with about 200,000 so that's gross revenue, with about 200,000 or so being in take home. So this gets me excited for this experiment. It does feel like, as I read through this, I forget how much work a lot of this is, as it's talking about clawbacks and parity laws and all these things that seriously I have not thought about in 10 years. And because we were private pay, I really didn't think about a lot either. So that's where I'm super excited to spend some time talking to these advisors that I'm bringing together, and we'll see where the next steps are. Thanks so much for hanging out today. I will keep you updated on kind of where I land in the next week or so. We could not do this show without our amazing sponsors. And today, Headway is our sponsor. If you are looking for help running your practice and want the best group practice you can have, you're going to want to sign up with Headway. They are trusted by thousands of group practice leaders to simplify their insurance admin and reach more people through in-network care. If you're curious about how Headway can help work for you, head on over to join.headway.co/Joe. That's join.headway.co/Joe. to learn more. Thank you for letting me into your ears and into your brain. Have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Special thanks to the band Silence is Sexy for that intro music, and this podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regard to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, the producers, the publishers, or guests are rendering legal, accounting, clinical, or other professional information. If you want a professional, you should find one.